Good evening, all. Happy Valentine's Day. Let's start with that first and foremost. This was a very enjoyable night at Carrow Road. I've changed perspective. I'm usually at the top of the stand, but I felt, given Norwich City have won at home today, I would try and change the angle in the hope that would bring some good luck for the future. So let's see if that works. Obviously, next Tuesday is the next time we're here. This was good. This was probably what was needed after obviously the defeat on Saturday against Bristol City, and kind of the feelings that everyone had after that maybe there was a little bit of staleness, that a reset was required, that certainly the playoffs felt a long way away. This was the type of performance that I felt was required just to lift everyone and pick everyone up, particularly at this place. It's been so tough to watch at times this season here. The atmosphere hasn't been great. These home fans haven't really seen success and consistent winning here since 2018-19. Obviously, that season that was kind of lost due to the COVID pandemic. So it's taken its toll, I think, and you could tell that. And David Wagner sensed that actually in his dugout. He said post-match when it was 1-1, a little bit wobbly, and I think you could sense that in this place. But actually, you contrast how the evening started to how it ended with those wonderful scenes in front of the Barclay of the players stood united. David Wagner pushing them forward, him letting out a big roar in front of the Barclay. That was the way I felt it needed to end tonight. If only to shift the mood a little bit again after two defeats. It kind of felt like it was slipping back to where it was. So they've won here tonight 3-1 against a Hull City side who before tonight had only lost once in 10, and that was against Sheffield United. They haven't really conceded goals since Liam Rosenior's come in. I think this is the most goals they've conceded in a game. That includes that defeat to Sheffield United. They've kept 5 clean sheets in that run as well. And certainly from the first half, you can see why. They're compact, they're organised, they're well coached. He's got them results playing that way and got them up the table. They've gone from really being in a relegation scrap to looking upwards actually before this game. And with a win here tonight, they could have leapt over Norwich City, I suppose, in the table, had more points and continued their good run of form. So for Norwich to respond to that test in the way that they did, to play as dominant as they did, and actually probably could have won this game by more than they did, I think is a testament to their work tonight. Let's start with the team news then. David Wagner made 2 changes, perhaps the most noticeable one of those. So first and foremost, before we get to that one, Marcelino Nunez dropped out for Onel Hernandez. We'll come back to him later. And Adam Ida starting ahead of Teemu Pukki, who I think everyone was a little bit perplexed by that decision, because it's been very rare, and I think it has been the case throughout his time at Norwich City, that if Teemu Pukki is fit, particularly in the Championship, Teemu Pukki plays. That wasn't the case tonight. Adam Ida came in. A combination of David Wagner speaking to Teemu Pukki and then both feeling maybe the freshness and the sharpness wasn't quite there at Bristol City, and also probably a realisation that we're in quite a congested period of games. And so I think it was an opportunity for him just to shuffle slightly. We saw Josh Sargent come off after 60 minutes on Saturday for Adam Ida. Today we saw Teemu Pukki not start. The plan actually was for him to come off the bench and to play a part in that second half. But during the halftime interval, he took a shot and just felt his calf slightly, which has meant that he didn't warm up throughout the entirety of the second half. And they just decided actually to err on the side of caution and not bring him into this game, given they play Wigan, Birmingham and Cardiff. They've got 3 games in the next 10 days. I think that's probably the right decision to make. Adam Ida and Josh Sargent did a fine job, as we'll come on to. But always very interesting, always very eyebrow-raising. I must admit, when I saw the team, it was a case of, of all the things maybe that were problematic at Norwich City, I don't really buy that Teemu Pukki has been the problem or is ever the problem. I think it's been more an argument about the service behind him, but that's not why he was dropped out. It was kind of a freshness, sharpness kind of issue, I suppose. So good to have that cleared up. So that was the team news. Crystal Schollis came back onto the bench, which was good to see. He played a little part towards the end of the game after what was a little bit of a break over the weekend, just to build up a little bit of fitness. He still looks a little bit short of perhaps where you'd want him to be, but I think we're getting there now with him, which is good to see. And hopefully we can see a few more cameos off the bench. He needs to. He's in that position now where he's on the bench and he's going to get minutes. He needs to kind of do something to push himself forward into that kind of conversation to start matches. So that's the next challenge for him. So this game started really curiously. I spent a lot of the first half using the word average. I felt it was quite mid-table-y. I think in truth it was Norwich getting quite frustrated by the way Hull was setting up. They were kind of forcing them to the channels. Norwich were happy to play in the channels. and Hull kind of kept them at arm's length to an extent. They weren't really keen to engage them in terms of a real high press, which we have seen other clubs and other teams do in recent weeks. And Norwich have kind of struggled with that a little bit. Burnley probably the best example of that. Bristol City were a bit more of a mid-block, but pressed quite well at times. This was quite sort of low blocky, and Hull were looking to kind of spring on the transition and to dominate that transition. And to be honest, I felt that kind of suited Norwich, because what they did tonight so effectively, it was very, very, very minute, very kind of niche point, but when they had the ball in the third, actually, if you watch kind of the back three, I suppose, when McLean drops in, they squeezed the pitch. They really pushed the pitch up, and what that allows them to do when they do concede possession, it allows them to counter press really quickly, win possession back really quickly, and then they've got bodies and players in different parts of the pitch to exploit that, and they did that very well tonight, and that's why they created the number of chances. Of course, it does leave a risk in behind. And there were a couple of instances where Hull had a little bit of joy in behind, but in terms of clear-cut chances and in terms of real saves that Angus Gunn has had to make tonight, it's not that many. So that slight change, that slight tweak, just to push them, and it was created by how well the front two pressed and harassed them, and how well the team supported that press at times as well. It enabled Norwich's defenders to be a bit more attacking at their focus and a bit more offensive in terms of their outlook to go and attack balls when they came into strikers, and be effective with that kind of first contact. And that was really effective in terms of how it set the game up and how it allowed Norwich to sustain attacks points, and also prevent Hull from getting out and breathing a little bit, particularly in that second half, which was really successful. The first goal is a mess. Hull took the lead after 14 minutes. Jacob Greaves with the goal. Corner comes in from the right. It's a free header. I think he loses on. I think Omar Bamadelli loses him. So that's then flicked to the back post. Kenny McLean clears it. Slater crosses it back in. Angus Gunn punches it. I haven't seen it back, but in real time I felt he could have caught it. Maybe I could be being really harsh there. Until I see it back, I won't know. Tete has then won the ball against, I think it's Gabi Sara, into Greaves' path, and he's turned and shot. So Norwich have kind of lost three phases there, and one was someone not being picked up properly. The second was an inability to clear. In Angus Gunn's case, he didn't quite get the punch. Again, I might be being uber harsh, so apologies to Angus if I watch this back and I feel like I'm being uber harsh. And then obviously Gabi Sara not quite winning the header against someone who's about 7 foot. So there we go. And obviously Greaves, it is a good finish. I think it was his return from injury today, so that was a good moment for him. So he gave Norwich the lead. Gave Hull the lead, sorry. The second goal then is really created by Onel Hernandez, who does really well, attacks the byline, beats his man. It's kind of everything we wanted to see from him. Cuts the ball across. It falls to Kieran Dow. That then takes a deflection off Greaves, and it feels like it took an absolute age to drop into that bottom corner of the net, but he did so. And that kind of quick response, I felt, helped Norwich in terms of what they were trying to do and maintain what they were trying to do, which was really positive. So he was named man of the match tonight, Onel Hernandez. I'm not quite sure what he had for breakfast, but he needs to have it more often, because that was pretty exhilarating to watch at times. And to be honest, it kind of underpins why there's a lot of frustration around him, because everyone knows that is what he can produce and what he has in his left boots and right boots. When he hits bylines, it causes problems. He caused Cyrus Christie, who's an experienced defender at championship levels, a whole host of problems all evening, and did that with his intensity, his willingness to attack people, and I've always liked that about Hernandez, that willingness, irrespective of how the game is going, either for Norwich or for him personally, to get the ball, to attack a defender. And I think actually people respond to that, and they respond to that willingness, even if necessarily the end product isn't there. And that's why Onel Hernandez is and remains such a popular figure. But tonight he was picking out passes. It was a lovely pullback. It might have taken a slight deflection on the way to Kieran Dow, but even so, the intent to cut that ball back was excellent. Dow, to be honest, the shot wasn't the best, but it takes a deflection, and Norwich have probably needed that little bit of luck recently. So to see that drop in the net, it did feel like a moment kind of the pendulum shifted. But actually, I felt the first half was pretty even. Norwich had a lot of the ball. They were trying to do a lot of things with it. That usually meant that they were going to the fullbacks quite a lot, because the space centrally was being closed off by what Hull was doing in terms of their shape. And Norwich were finding it quite difficult to progress centrally, so that meant kind of chip balls into wide areas. We had a lot of crossing situations. Some of them were really good, and some of them they really struggled to kind of hit a yellow shirt. Adam Eder flicked a header over. Josh Sargent had a header about 10 seconds before the halftime whistle, for example. They worked those opportunities in those channels really well at points today. And as I said, the second half probably came from how effective they were at their press, and it's so hard to defend constantly without the ball and without having possession of the ball. It affects you a lot more kind of mentally. It gives you that mental fatigue a lot more, because the concentration that's required to fill positions and to cover space and to track men, that requires a lot of effort, and over time that does grind you down. And that's kind of what I put at half time. I said it would be a battle of endurance for Norwich City. I felt that would be the case, and I did feel there were going to be opportunities and openings in the second half in terms of the way that they were playing, and I would say actually the press and the way they press, if you're going to point at one thing and say, yep, that's the thing that David Wagner has improved the most, it is their work in that department. They press with such velocity, but also now it's kind of backed up. There's a togetherness to it. They look well coached when they go to press, and it is chaotic, but it's designed to be chaotic, and it's designed to cause problems. And actually the amount of corners and turnovers that they won because of how effective they were in the press, and it was a quickness to that as well. It was lose the ball, right, we press, I go here, and backing people up, and that's really exciting, I think, when it gets going, and people really respond to that. So that's pleasing to see. The second goal, again, much needed. Onel Hernandez up against sort of Christie again. Really sort of dances past him, really silky feet to kind of engineer a passing opportunity to Gabi Sarra. It's a wonderful finish, that type of finish where you just clip it gracefully with the inside of your boot with his left foot to the back post. It bounces away from the goalkeeper and into the corner. It's a sublime finish, but he has a lot to thank Onel Hernandez for that goal. That was obviously Onel Hernandez's second assist of the night. Gabi Sarra, I think, we talk a lot, and people have spoken a lot about recruitment and the difficulties that Norwich have had in that particular department, and some of the problems that they've had in that department. Increasingly, Gabi Sarra looks a really good find, actually, in terms of what he's offering game to game. I think there are little points where he's stretched because, and he said it himself, he's kind of playing kind of in between an 8 and a 6. You can say 7 if you like, but those kind of midfield roles, the kind of sitting role, but also that kind of energetic box-to-box role. And he's having to do a lot of stuff on his own at points because of the way that Norwich play and the way they build up with McLean dropping in, the fact they keep those attacking players so high. They basically have, if you imagine the pitch vertically split into 5 zones, they like to have an attacking player in every single zone when they attack. So 1 centrally, 2 wide, and 2 in kind of what's called the half spaces. So that space between basically the penalty spot and the width of the penalty box, in that kind of central pocket of space there. That's how they like to attack, and that means being really aggressive with how you position your players. So in turn, that's meaning that Gabi Sarra is having to do a lot for one man, but he's doing it very well at points. His passing range, I think, is excellent. We're seeing that increasingly. There was a wonderful pass in particular to Yanulis. I think it was in the first half, but his switches of play, his decision making, the way he shifts the ball, don't get me wrong, and let's not pretend it's perfect and he's in a really good kind of position at the moment. There's still a lot there to develop and improve. He kind of spoke about how David Wagner has to mould him in that position, and he was well aware of that. But actually the raw materials are there, and he looks increasingly a very, very good player at this level, and someone who I think I'm thinking more towards next season. Let's and obviously we hope Norwich City are playing at Premier League level, but if it is another championship campaign, you can really see him grasping the mantle and becoming a real pivotal player in terms of what Norwich City do. And there's a reason why David Wagner is so happy with that midfield too at this moment in time, because increasingly they feel like Norwich City's best options. I want to give a shout out to Kenny McLean as well, who's excellent tonight and has been excellent, to be fair, really since David Wagner came in terms of setting intensity, playing that role where you drop in the back three so expertly. It looks like he's been playing it for years, and he hasn't. And his experience and nous is helping get Norwich City through games. So him as well. Kieran Dow was good. A couple of cute moments, a couple of moments where he just frustrated a little bit, but that's him. That's okay. Obviously got his goal. And then the third goal comes from, again, kind of we spoke about the centre-backs supporting a press in a better way, leaving fewer gaps in between kind of what they're doing vertically. You would have heard Dean Smith talk about spaces between kind of positional lines quite a bit. It's that really, because of how well Eder and Sargent were confining Hull and pressing them in. It allowed the centre-backs I spoke about to really push in, and Norwich were essentially playing in Hull's half. They had 10 men bar Angus Gunn in Hull's half at times, and that makes it really difficult to play out because the only route really is over. But Hull wanted to engage, they wanted to try and play out from it, and Norwich were forcing individual errors, and that's shown from the third goal. Hanley gets ahead of the striker. wins it. It's a lovely 1-2. I think it was Gabby Sara again. Might have been with Sholis. I think it was with Sholis. Could have been with Vida, actually. A nice 1-2 to get away. Lovely pass from Sargent. The ball lets the ball run across his body, and it's a wonderful strike across the goalkeeper into the back of the net. His 11th of the season. Actually, I felt he needed that because certainly since the World Cup, there's been maybe a little bit of something lacking from his performances. It's understandable. He's kind of expended a lot this season. He's put in a lot to the cause at Norwich City, but also to his country. So I think that's to be expected. But that's a wonderful finish across the goalkeeper. 3 goals, 3 points, happy days, and it's as I said, a really important win for the mood around this place. It really needed that, and those scenes at the end, just as they did at Preston for different reasons, felt really important. You had David Wagner kind of roaring at the home fans. The players kind of stood in that line that we've become accustomed to, with David Wagner pointing at them and wanting the praise put on them, and they deserved it tonight. It was a good performance, but as we say with this team, there's such a range, and David Wagner spoke about this in their performance levels. When they're good, they're really good, and when they're not great, the drop off is quite immense. They actually probably need to find a middle ground in there somewhere if they're going to put a run together. Obviously, they go to Wigan on Saturday. That marks another opportunity. I said this week I felt they need 6 points if they want to keep themselves in the conversation for the top 6. Well, they're halfway there. If they can get another 3 at Wigan, then I think suddenly it feels completely different again, and that is the nature of this Championship season. And it's a little bit chaotic, but I think we're enjoying it, right? We're enjoying it. I think we're enjoying it. There we go. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you all very much for watching and spending your Valentine's night with me. Very, very kind of you. I appreciate it, when you could have been doing a million and one other things and probably better things than watching me in the cold at Carrow Road talking about a 3-1 Norwich City win. But at least it was a Norwich City win at home, which we all needed, I think. Good stuff. Pinken.com, the place to go. Plenty more analysis and reaction there. You can read David Wagner's quotes. You can read the fan reaction. And of course, if you get to do so, please take out a trial for the Pinken Plus app. If you haven't tried that yet, please do. Plenty of exclusive content on there. We've got a column from Chris Sutton, Norwich City legend, going up in the morning. So do give that a watch. And just finally, for Ryan Woods, good night.